That down, guys. Let's move on to this, shall we? Speaking of the future and Disney, a lot of people are very excited that X-Men movies are finally coming. We've had some very subtle and short introduction to some X-Men characters. Of course, we had, one Patrick Stewart's version of Professor X pop up in Doctor Strange. We've had Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine. We had that one shot of Beast at the end of the Marvels. X-Men are coming. Not imminently. We just still don't know where we're getting our first bona fide X-Men film, but the X-Men are coming. And now, according to a report, Stranger Things breakout star Sadie Sink may be in line to be our new Jean Grey for the next 10 to 15 years. This comes to us from Men's Journal, who wrote this. According to Hollywood tipster and sometimes guest on our show, our friend Jeff Snyder, Sadie Sink is the quote-unquote frontrunner to play a new version of Jean Grey. This will be the first time Jean Grey has been introduced into the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the rumors suggest that certain members of the X-Men could appear in upcoming Marvel movies very soon, even before a proper X-Men movie reboot has started filming. As Snyder puts it, Marvel's X-Men movie doesn't have a director yet, but could some members of the team be introduced prior to that? And then he went on to mention that Sadie Sink was leading the way right now anyway to be a Jean Grey. All right. Here's a couple of things that we can kind of take away from this. If true, and listen, I need to point out, Jeff is a friend of ours, but I still need to be objective and point out he's been wrong a couple of times, right? He's also broken some of the biggest scoops of the last couple of years have come from Jeff Snyder. But just to be objective and to be fair, he's also missed on a couple of them. So I just want to throw that out there. Although he is one of the more reliable guys out there, is Jeff. So let's take for a second that Jeff is right and Sadie Sink is going to be, see if you can pull up a picture of Sadie there. Yeah. So this is the one from Stranger Things. That Sadie Sink is going to be the new Jean Grey. Okay. My first takeaway from this is this gives us a bit of an inclination about what the age range of the new X-Men are going to be. Because there's been some conversation about, hey, they're going to start the new X-Men. Are they going to be in their early 30s already? Will they already be a veteran team? Will it be a first class kind of thing? Will they be really young? Maybe they'll be young-ish, all that kind of stuff. I think if this is true, and we're just going on the assumption that it is just for the sake of the conversation, if it is true and Sadie Sink is our new Jean Grey, this gives us a little bit of insight, because I don't think we're going to get a Hugh Jackman Wolverine sparking up a romance with young Sadie Sink. I don't think we're going to get that. I don't think we're going to have a 39-year-old Scott Summers going, hey, what's up, little girl? I don't think we're going to get that. I
Come
think
to the school often.
I think what this tells us is we're going to get a more age. It gives us a sense of the age range that we're going to get. Younger. Sure. I don't think they're going to say she's 14.
No.
In it, but
I'm curious about. I'll look up her age. Just out of
how old Sadie is.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to say she's like early 20s.
Okay.
That's my guess. I don't know how old she actually is. She might be like 17, 19, but I think they're going to say early 20s. Oh, guys in the live chat are saying she's 22 years old.
All right. So yeah, around that age.
Yeah.
Late teens, early 20s.
Yeah. So
22,
it looks to me like what they're doing is, if this report turns out to be true, and we can't independently verify that it is, but if it is true, then it looks like they're trying to set themselves up that they, like that original run of X-Men with Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry, they're trying to set up where they can put together an X-Men team that they can have together for 15 or 20 years and still play those roles. Not that they will get 15 to 20 years of these characters, but it seems like they're kind of setting it up that they can do it in that direction, which would be good. Now, let's just talk about Sadie for a second. She's great. What was that one little independent film she did recently? Oh my God.
Well, she was in The Sacrifice. She was in the Whale.
The Whale. Well, The Whale. But then there was another one the Whale, she was great in The Whale. Then there was another one that I'm thinking of that I'm freezing. Anyway,
A Sacrifice.
so number one, she was great. And she's great in Stranger Things. But I've really liked her in the couple of things. Now, granted, I haven't seen her in a dozen things, but I've really liked her in the things we've seen her in since then as well. She's really good. And listen, as much as I really liked the ex-Mrs. Joe Jonas, the girl from Game of Thrones. Sophie Turner, thank you. As much as I very much liked Sophie Turner in Game of Thrones, I've never felt she was a good casting or a right fit. I never really felt she was the right fit to play Jean Grey moving forward. It's special. I mean, I might have initially maybe thought this could be okay, but especially once I saw her in the role, it's like I think she's a tremendous performer, but this was not the right role from her. I think Sadie Sink could be a really good fit for this. I think she could be a really good fit. And if they do go out and get her, and if they do knock it out of the park, it makes me very excited to see how they'll kind of line up the future of the X-Men as well.
How do you feel about if they did go younger? If they did go younger with the X-Men, I mean,
like Sadie Sink early 20s
as
younger?
in, like, you know, they haven't been through at least from the X-Men, the abuse,
not younger,
not the abuse,
less
but
experience.
Yeah, and that they're just being. It's almost like we're gonna discover them as they discover their powers.
Yeah, I mean,
something like that. I don't know.
Here's been the big problem I've had with them bringing in X-Men. Not big problem, but the big worry is that the whole foundation of the X-Men, to even understand the X-Men, you have to understand the cultural context that they're in. They have always lived in and grew up in a world that fears and hates them. With the whole idea of mutants and humanity has been an issue for ages. And they live in a world that lives in that tension.
Right.
And in the famous quote of, of Professor X, they have to fight for a world that fears and hates them. And so I've always kind of been apprehensive about the idea of just starting the X-Men and saying mutations have just started, because you're taking away that foundational context of X-Men storytelling.
Right.
But at the same time, how do you suddenly say that, oh yeah, mutants have been around for a couple of decades, but it's never once been mentioned in the MCU? Maybe that has something to do with multiverse, with something that they'll address with Doomsday or Secret Wars or something. Like they've said, like, for instance, Saturday Morning Fans say, well, they've mentioned Ms. Marvel and Namor. Okay, yeah, but that's not a world that has been living with social tension of mutants and humanity for decades. And that is the story underpinning of the classic storytelling of X-Men. Mm-hmm. And without it, it's just not X-Men. So it's going to be really interesting to see how and I have all the faith in the world that Kevin Feige will find a way to navigate that. I just don't know how he's going to do it. He'll figure something out.
Do you have a preference about like maybe the age that they come in? Because we're dealing with maybe interactions with Robert Downey or Thor, things like that. If they go a little too young, that would be a little weird. If they're supposed to be,
well, no, we already listen. If it is Sadie Sink, she's 22, right? So early 20s is perfectly fine. I have no problem with that. I mean, even the MCU has even introduced us to Ms. Marvel. They've introduced us to Kate Bishop. They've introduced so it's kind of on the younger end. My bigger concern is, what is the context of the culture that the X-Men are going to exist in? Is it one where mutants are basically brand new onto the scene and people have never heard of them? Or is it going to be a world where there's been a constant tension about, do humans trust mutants? And do mutants trust humanity? So it's going to be really interesting to see how they navigate that and bring that in. But look, all we know for sure, if Jeff's report is right and Sadie Sink is the one they're looking at for Jean Grey, is that they're bringing in a tremendously talented girl. Tremendously talented.
Right.
And I think she could be a great Jean Grey. And it makes me really interested to see how they cast the other characters. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Assume for a moment that the report is correct and they're looking at bringing in Sadie Sink to be the new Jean Grey. Do you like that casting? Did you maybe envision somebody like a more mature woman than that? Maybe you don't believe the report at all. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.